So, Meesho, you've probably heard the name. It's one of India's hottest startups, and now they're heading for an IPO. But hold on, this isn't just another e-commerce company. They're doing something pretty radical, a zero-commission model. Yeah, you heard that right. Their entire game is about capturing a massive, and I mean massive, untapped market. We're talking about the next billion users. So today, we're going to tear into their public filing and figure out one thing. Can this explosive growth story actually turn into a profitable business for investors?
All right, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at the big picture, the e-commerce challenge in India. Then, we'll get into Meesho's secret sauce, what they called their platform flywheel. After that, we'll see how they stock up against the competition, crunch the numbers in their financials, and wrap it all up with a final investor's verdict.
All right, let's dive right in. First, we need to understand the sheer scale of the opportunity Meesho is going after. We're talking about the next billion online shoppers in India.
Okay, get this. The Indian retail market is projected to be a massive $1.6 trillion market by 2030. That's huge. But here's the million-dollar question, or maybe the trillion-dollar question. Why is e-commerce just a tiny slice of that pie? What's going on here?
And wow, this chart really puts it into perspective. Check it out. India's e-commerce penetration is sitting at around 7%. Now, compare that to a market like China, which is at 34%. That gap, that's not a weakness. That is an absolutely enormous opportunity. It's like a wide-open field, and the real prize is winning over all those new users who are coming online for the very first time.
But here's the kicker, and this is super important to understand. India isn't just one single market. It's more like a collection of thousands of different markets, all rolled into one. I mean, the beautiful Fulkari embroidery that's a huge hit in the north, it's a completely different world from the Kanjivaram silk saris everyone loves in the south. So if you're trying to win here, a generic one-size-fits-all strategy is just, it's not going to cut it. You have to get local. You have to master these incredibly diverse tastes.
So, the big question is, how on earth does Meesho plan to solve this massive, complex puzzle? Well, it all comes down to their business model, something they call the platform flywheel. Let's break it down.
Okay, this is the most important thing to get about Meesho. They are not a retailer in the traditional sense. They don't have giant warehouses stuffed with products. They don't own any inventory. Think of them more like a tech platform, a digital matchmaker connecting millions of small sellers with millions of buyers. This is what we call an asset-light model, and it's brilliant because it lets them scale up like crazy without needing to pour billions into infrastructure.
And this right here, this is the engine that powers the whole thing. It's a beautiful, self-reinforcing cycle. So it all starts with getting tons and tons of sellers onto the platform. The more sellers you have, the more products you have, right? A better variety, better prices. Well, that amazing selection naturally pulls in more buyers. And when you have more buyers ordering stuff, you create what's called logistics density. That just means it becomes cheaper and more efficient to deliver everything. And guess what? Cheaper delivery makes the platform even more attractive for, you guessed it, more sellers to join. See how it works? It just keeps feeding itself, getting bigger and faster. It's a powerful feedback loop.
Okay, so you might be thinking, wait a minute, if they don't charge commissions, how do they make any money? And that's a great question. The answer is all about selling services that help their sellers succeed. They make money from things like handling the logistics and delivery, letting sellers advertise their products right on the platform, and even providing data insights to help them sell better. So you see, their success is literally tied to their sellers' success. When the sellers win, Meesho wins.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. They say it themselves right here in their filing. This zero-commission model isn't just a gimmick. It is their core strategic weapon. It's the secret sauce that has allowed them to bring millions of small, local sellers online. Sellers who were completely ignored by the big e-commerce players.
So the model sounds great on paper, right? But the real test is how it performs out in the wild. Let's see how Meesho actually stacks up against its rivals.
And the data here is, well, it's pretty compelling. In these key value commerce spaces, think affordable fashion, home goods, stuff like that, Meesho is an absolute powerhouse. I mean, look at this. They've captured nearly a quarter of the market share in both fashion and home furnishings. It's crystal clear that their laser focus on this specific niche is paying off big time.
Now remember how we talked about advertising being a key way they make money? Well, this chart shows you exactly why that's a gold mine. For every rupee a seller spends on ads on a platform like Meesho, they get 6 to 10 rupees back in sales. That's a return that is more than double what they'd get on other digital platforms.
For a small business owner, that is an unbelievable deal. It's a huge reason for them to not just stay on Meesho, but to invest more in growing their business there.
All right, we've seen the strategy and the competitive landscape. Now it's time for the moment of truth. Let's pop the hood and look at the financials to see if the numbers really tell the same exciting story.
So what are people actually buying on Meesho? No surprises here. This chart confirms exactly what we've been talking about. It's dominated by apparel and footwear. And that makes perfect sense, right? These are things people buy often, they don't cost a ton of money, and they are the absolute sweet spot for that value-conscious customer that Meesho serves so well. Okay, pay close attention to these two numbers because they are absolutely critical. Yeah, the total number of orders nearly doubling in 2 years is impressive, but what's even more important is this number right here, order frequency. The average user is now buying more than 9 times a year. That tells you something huge. Meesho isn't just a one-and-done shopping app. They are building a base of loyal, sticky, repeat customers. And in e-commerce, that is everything.
All right, let's get to the big financial snapshot. And I'll be honest, at first glance, you might look at this and think, yikes. Revenue is down and that net loss looks massive. But you have to understand the context here. It's crucial. That dip in revenue, that was actually a strategic choice to pass on logistics savings to their sellers. And that huge loss, it's inflated by a big one-time restructuring cost. The real story, the number you should be looking at, is EBITDA. Think of it as a measure of the core business's health. And look at that improvement. They went from a loss of almost 17 billion rupees to just over 2 billion. That is a dramatic turnaround, and it signals that the underlying business is getting way, way healthier.
Okay, so we've covered the strategy, the market, the numbers. Let's put it all together. What's the final call? It's time to lay out the case for the bulls versus the case for the bears.
So really, it all boils down to which story you believe in. The bulls are going to be shouting from the rooftops about this incredibly scalable, asset-light model. They'll point to Meesho's complete dominance in a huge, underserved market. They'll love the sticky user base and see a clear runway to making serious money through ads. But the bears, they're going to fire back, pointing to that long history of burning through cash and the fact that they're fighting against giants with incredibly deep pockets.
And that brings us to the final billion-dollar question. There's no doubt that Meesho has absolutely cracked the code on generating insane amounts of volume. But can they convert all that volume into real, sustainable, long-term value for their shareholders? That, my friends, is the central question you have to answer before you even think about this IPO.
And that's our deep dive into the Meesho IPO filing. Now, just a quick reminder, this is all for informational and educational purposes. It is absolutely not financial advice. Please do your own homework before making any investment decisions. Thanks so much for tuning in for this explainer.